Good. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular open meeting of Vesuvius Town Council, Tuesday, June the 9th, 2026 at 2 p.m. in council chambers. So I will first ask for the approval of the agenda, and there are no late items. Thank you. Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you. And the adoption of the regular open minutes from May the 26th, 2026. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you very much. So we will now move on to a public hearing. And I will first of all call the public hearing pertaining to the Agricultural Land Reserve, ALR, block exclusion proposal. In accordance with Section 464 of the Local Government Act, this public hearing is convened to allow interested parties to make representation to Council respecting Agricultural Land Reserve, ALR, block exclusion proposal. Every person present who believes that their interests are affected by the proposed exclusion will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard. We will hear from staff on the matter, then receive public input, then Council will deliberate the issue before the public hearing adjourns. We will now hear a presentation from the planner on the public hearing matter. Thank you, Ms. Duong.
Great, thank you so much. I'll make this a little bit quick since we've gone over this topic a couple of times. So just to start off, according to the town's OCP bylaw, approximately 326.7 hectares of land within the town are within the agricultural land reserve, and that represents about 14% of the town's entire land base. The bylaw also stipulates that 138.24 hectares of the ALR land base is designated as agriculture under the OCP bylaw, which means that a majority of ALR lands within the town currently have non-agricultural land use designations, and these lands have historically generally been developed in accordance with those non-agricultural land use designations. This largely consists of small lot residential development, but also does include various commercial, tourist commercial, and other non-farm uses. This, of course, presents various challenges, namely that the ALR status of these properties is not reflective of the town's direction with respect to intended future land use. Property owners may believe that they can purchase or develop a property because what they want to do is consistent with their zoning, but is actually not permitted within the ALR. Some property owners may not be aware of the ALR status of their property. And lastly, there may be an unexpected and additional application process with the Agricultural Land Commission, and that can ultimately result in lengthy delays, as well as additional costs that property owners would have to pay. So an exclusion of the lands from the ALR is therefore seen to address these challenges. Accordingly, on December 9th, 2025, staff had presented a proposal to exclude a number of properties throughout the town from the Agricultural Land Reserve. The subject properties were identified using two criteria, being that firstly, the ALR lands, which have been designated for non-agricultural uses under the OCP bylaw, and or ALR lands which have historically and currently are not being used for agricultural purposes. One property was included following a request from the property owner to be included within that proposal. So in total, this represents approximately 178.11 hectares of lands. A detailed list of the properties that are proposed for exclusion, as well as an associated map, is available as part of this council report and has also been available for public access on the town's project webpage. With respect to the statutory context of ALR exclusions, due to amendments to the Agricultural Land Commission Act of 2020, private property owners are no longer able to apply for the exclusion of their properties from the ALR. So accordingly, exclusion applications can only be submitted by the province, First Nation, or local governments, as well as prescribed bodies. And in the context of this particular project, local governments may make applications to exclude privately owned lands within their jurisdiction. However, where an applicant does propose to exclude land from the ALR, they are to provide notice of the application and also notify and hold a public hearing on the matter. So with this in mind, on December 9th, 2025, Council did resolve to initiate an application to exclude 62 non-agricultural parcels from the ALR and schedule a public hearing for April 28th, 2026. Although the original resolution does speak to the 62 parcels, 2 of those entries had actually involved 2 portions of the same property, which has been corrected in the Council report. On March 24th, 2026, Council had further resolved to include in the exclusion proposal 7 properties along Wren Place and 97th Street, which were unintentionally excluded from the original property list, as well as an approximately 0.9 hectare portion of the property at 9425 87th Street, in response to a property owner request, as previously mentioned. On April 28th, 2026, a public hearing was held, and following discussions within the council meeting regarding concerns about taxation implications associated with a potentially successful exclusion, council did resolve to refer the proposed application back to committee of the whole for further discussion. So that conversation happened at the May 12th committee of the whole meeting, and council had subsequently resolved to schedule a second public hearing for today. As detailed out in the staff report, this proposed application was notified in several manners, as was statutorily required. So this includes, but isn't limited to, the creation of a project webpage regarding the proposal, newspaper advertisements in the 2 weeks leading up to both the April and today's public hearing, posting of notification signs, e-news notification, as well as letters distributed to property owners. And just as a quick reminder, if this exclusion is successful and the properties are excluded from the ALR, the main implication is that the properties that are currently subject to the restrictions under the ALC Act and regulations would no longer be subject to those restrictions. So this would remove the requirement for these property owners to apply to and obtain approvals from the Agricultural Land Commission to undertake non-farm uses. That being said, the properties would of course remain subject to all applicable town land use bylaw regulations such as zoning, regardless of the outcome. With respect to next steps, after this public hearing, council will be considering whether to submit the application to the Agricultural Land Commission. If council is supportive, staff would then submit that application and work with the commission to move it forward. And if that application is approved, there may be conditions that may need to be met prior to the ALC's approval being actioned. And lastly, if council does direct staff to submit this application, it's not entirely clear how long the process will take. Typically, the ALC does release their decisions within 60 to 90 days. However, due to recent staffing updates, this may require additional time. And then lastly, while the application is being processed, these properties will remain within the Agricultural Land Reserve and therefore will remain subject to the provisions of the ALC Act and regulations, unless a property is otherwise deemed by the ALC as an exception to its restrictions on use in accordance with the ALC Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duong. We will now receive input on the public hearing matter. There was a sheet, a sign-up sheet. Has that? It's at the front. Okay, fair enough. Written representations have been received from Kathleen Dodd in support of proposed ALR exclusion, Oasis RV Resort opposed to the proposed ALR exclusion, and Jonathan Hart in support of proposed ALR exclusion. I will now call upon those who have registered to speak. Please note this is not a venue for questions and answers or a forum in which to debate the merits of the proposal. When your name is called, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. You will then have up to 5 minutes to indicate whether you support or oppose the proposal and provide your reasons. Each speaker may only speak once. If speakers discuss matters that do not pertain to the proposed exclusion, they will be interrupted and asked to restrict their comments to the proposal. We ask that others in attendance be respectful of proper meeting conduct by not applauding or speaking out of turn. I will start with those in person, then we will hear from anyone online who has registered to speak. So do we have a list of who has?
There is nobody pre-registered to speak.
All right. Thank you. So I will just check to see if there is anyone who would like to please come up to the microphone? The lady in the Unity shirt. Please state your name and your address.
My name is Coyne and my 615 Lakeshore Drive.
Oh, thanks.
Did you hear me?
Remember to turn on the microphone. Good.
Yes, and I'm supposed to write my name and stuff here. All right, just give me a sec. So yes,
Perhaps
two
before you start, perhaps you could pass the paper back. If there's
Oh.
anyone else who is wanting to speak, maybe they would write their names down on here while you're speaking, and then we
Sure.
could save time. Thank you very
Sure.
much.
Okay,
Go
well,
ahead.
good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of the Oasis RV Resort Association. The council members from our group were unable to attend today, so I get to talk. That I was formally approved for the board to represent the association at this hearing, and that I am familiar with the correspondence exchanged between the town and the association to date. We share the correspondence. We recognize that individual owners may hold personal opinions that differ from the association's position, and emphasize that the association respects those individual perspectives. I'd like to clarify that the association's position was established democratically through consultation with board direction. So I want to let you know that the Oasis Resort Owners Association opposes the inclusion of the Oasis property in the town's ALR exclusion project, that the vast majority of co-owners are support remaining in the ALR and do not wish to be part of the exclusion initiative. I'd like to reiterate that the association's position is based on a long-standing ALR status, the absence of evidence showing the land lacks agricultural capability, and the desire to maintain the protections and stability that ALR designation provides. So in closing, I'd like to just thank you for the opportunity to speak here today, and that we would like to continue constructive communication with you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to come and speak? Please come up. Sir, did you have your name on there?
Nope.
No, could you pass it on to whoever it is? Thank you very much.
Hi,
Go ahead.
my name is Tammy Collier. I am also from the Oasis Park. Until about 2 weeks ago, myself and quite a few people that I know in the park knew nothing about a committee who was representing us to stay in the ALR. I do not agree with staying in the ALR. I do not think our park is in any kind of proper zoning for the ALR, and I think the best thing for our park would be to be out of the ALR.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue for a second time? I will ask if there's any. Please come up to the microphone.
Hi, my name's Anita Hendricks and I live at 5227 Lakeshore Drive. I was at the last meeting and I just want to clarify something that I was misquoted at the last meeting. We do pay school taxes. We are not exempt from school taxes. We are exempt from a portion of school taxes. And I personally and my husband pay over $1.3 million of value of school taxes. So we're not exempt from school taxes. We're exempt from a portion of school taxes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? We'll start again for the first time. Is there, please come up. I hope some of the rest of you are getting ready, are you? If you wish to speak, no problem.
Hi, my name is Ryan Liebel and I live at 3013 Lakeshore Drive, and I'd like to keep mine in the ALR, please. I pay all the school taxes. I don't get a portion off, and I don't see any benefit for it coming out for my property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will call again, start again. Is there anyone else who would like to come up to the microphone and speak on this issue? For a second time, is there anyone who would like to speak on this issue? For a third and final time, is there anyone who would like to speak? The speakers list is now closed. Ms. Oshowski, could you turn off the microphone there, please? Thank you. We will now ask staff whether they wish to respond to any of the new information raised during this hearing. Ms. Duong?
Thank you. No response from our side.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions or comments from anyone on council? Thank you. Then the public hearing is now adjourned. Council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. Council members will not speak to the public further on this matter until it has been considered at a convened public meeting of council. Thank you to everyone who attended the public hearing today. So we will now move to the recommendation from our staff, and I would look for a recommendation, please, from council. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this? Anyone like to make a recommendation? Councillor Chong?
So I'll do it. I'll move option 1.
Could you read that, Councillor Chong?
Council direct administration to submit an application to the Agricultural Land Commission, ALC, for the exclusion of approximately 178.11 hectares of land from the Agricultural Land Reserve, ALR.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor King is seconding. Just a minute, then we will go before we take the vote. Is there anything? A question for staff? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know it'd be quite a bit of work. Are we allowed to take some of these properties out of the application if we chose to?
Go ahead, Ms. Duong.
Yes, that would be within council's discretion to do so.
The motion as it stands is that the 178.11 hectares be included in this motion. So, yes, go ahead.
To clarify, in terms of the ALR designation, what protections are given to each of these properties?
Go ahead, Ms. Duong.
I may require just a little bit more elaboration in terms of what that question means.
Let me rephrase then. The difference between being in the ALR versus not being in the ALR, knowing full well that the town's bylaws are still applicable to both, what would be functionally the difference?
The primary difference would be that for those properties that are not deemed to be an exception from the restrictions of use under the ALC Act, those restrictions would apply. So that could potentially contradict the zoning of the property. So even though zoning says that you may potentially be able to develop your property in some way, if that is a restricted use within the ALR, you would need to get an approval from the Agricultural Land Commission first before the town could proceed on providing any authorizations.
So as a follow-up, by being removed from the ALR, we essentially remove that step. So if there is a variance or another request for that property, they would just come directly to us instead of having to wait potentially months to hear back from the ALR.
That's correct, yes. It would essentially remove the requirement to have to get approvals from the Agricultural Land Commission. So if someone wanted to develop their property in accordance with zoning, it would simply be, if it abides by the bylaws, no variance is required, which, you know, reduces the timelines quite a bit. If a variance is required or a rezoning is required, of course, it has to go to council.
And just to clarify again, being designated in the ALR doesn't give any special benefit compared to the property of the exact same zoning, but one that is not in the ALR then.
I would say that's generally correct. Really, the only thing that would be different is that when a property is located within the ALR, there are certain uses that a local government cannot prohibit. So for example, agriculture. If someone wanted to undertake an agricultural operation, let's say on one of these non-agricultural parcels, and it were removed from the ALR, they would no longer have that necessarily inherent allowance under the ALC Act.
Then in the exemption application, if the ALC deems that one of these properties is agriculture, they wouldn't exempt that property from the ALR regardless.
That would be within the Agricultural Land Commission's discretion. So hard to answer on their behalf.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess you've done this with other towns possibly, and it just seems, I know it's the provincial government that makes a final decision. Do they go through every one and they might pull some out themselves, do you know?
I do believe that is the case. I have not had an application with this number of properties, but the commission does have the final discretion to choose.
Okay, so we have, did you have something? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Ben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If all this correspondence goes along to the LR with the application, and then the LR looks at it, and then they can, from there, can these landowners also go to the LR and ask to be excluded after we send this in?
Ms. Wong?
So the public hearing reports, as well as all the representations, would be included to the Agricultural Land Commission as part of our submission of the application if council does choose to go that route. With respect to whether or not a private property owner can go directly to the commission, I think that would largely be within the commission's discretion as to whether to receive that correspondence. However, my understanding is that it's more typical for them to relay private property owners to local government, as a council would be in a better position to essentially weigh the merits from their community standpoint.
Go ahead.
With these public input, would they also be included in the submission?
Yes.
Thank you. So everybody has all the questions answered. Then we have it moved and seconded that we go with the recommendation that was provided by our planners, and I will call the question. All in favor? Against? Thank you. That carries. Thank you, everyone. We will now look to bylaws. The election bylaw amendment bylaw 1332.02. And we will ask Mrs. Coulson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Changes to the election bylaw 1332 were introduced at the May 12th Committee of the Whole meeting, and the first three readings of the bylaw amendments were provided at the May 26th regular meeting of Council. Just to recap, the main amendments to the bylaw pertain to mail ballots, election sign placement, and the date for one of the advanced voting opportunities. The recommendation for Council today is to adopt election bylaw amendment 1332.02/2026.
Thank you. And first, second, and third readings were on May 26th. So we have been through this before. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks,
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
King.
With a new idea of mail-in ballot, do you feel comfortable that we have enough security around mail-in ballots?
Yes, in short, I do feel that it's secure enough because the person has to register before they get their ballot, so we don't hand them out to just anybody. And as they come back in, it's a series of envelopes, and after you open the envelope it came in, there's a certification envelope that is a sworn statement from the voter saying I'm entitled to vote and I haven't voted before and so on. So there is a sworn declaration.
Yes, then a follow-up question. I guess this is try to get people that are out of town. So how do they pick up the ballot when they're out of town, but they want to vote?
They can they can register through email or on the phone. And in those cases, they would have to send us a photocopy of a piece of ID with their application to get a mail ballot. And then it could be mailed to them.
And then how do you verify that person's the real person that sent the ID in?
Well, how can you at any point really, somebody, you could go in and say that you're someone else at the poll too and give them a piece of ID that's false. I mean, it is possible, but that's fraud. So we hope that most people would not be doing that. And we do verify it with any information we have about any of our residents in town.
And do you feel we get enough staff to support all these requests?
Yeah, yeah, it's either at the poll or it's this way, and this way is a little bit more work. There's some extra steps, but we keep very, very careful records that are open to candidate representatives or scrutineers. At any point in time, they can come in and have a look at the register to see who has applied for a mail ballot. I feel that the process is strong and secure enough. Is it a little bit more work? Yes, it is. But I think if we can avoid even one or two people being disenfranchised because they're unable to come to a poll, I feel like it's worth it.
And then all these wouldn't be open till sort of the last day?
The way it reads in the bylaw, again, in front of a scrutineer, the chief election officer and one other individual can feed through, they can open the ballots and feed them through 4 days prior to the main voting day. And that's to get, if there's kind of a backload, we don't want to be doing it all at 8 o'clock on general voting day. So that takes care of any backlog. Those would be fed into an automated voting machine. So the ballots would be secure in there. And then anything that came in those last 3 days would be put through the machine at 8 o'clock on general voting day.
Thank you, Mrs. Coulson. We know that you've done a fair amount of work to put this together, and I know that you've worked in other areas where they have used this. So thank you for allowing this at this time, and it looks like it seems to make sense to me for sure. So we have
I'll
a
move option 1.
thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Chong, thank you. And so that's the recommended motion. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next is reports from the Committee of the Whole meeting this morning from June the 9th, 2026, that Council approved the installation of a cricket pitch at Desert Park subject to a finalized design at the expense of the BC Mainland Cricket League, BCMCL, and that Council approve an administrative arrangement whereby cricket pitch rental fees incurred by the BCMCL are credited up to the equivalent dollar value of the installation. Could we have mover, Councillor Chong, seconder, Councillor Bennett? I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll now ask the CAO to give her report. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Starting as usual in community services, the Resort Municipality Initiative Annual Report was completed and submitted, so that's a good milestone. We're excited to announce that Meadowlark Park has been awarded to TwinCon, and it will be started in the upcoming weeks. The Easy Dock systems for Legion Beach and Gyro Beach is scheduled for installation on June 15th. In Sonora, registration for Cactus Kids Day Camp started on June 3rd, and the town held its annual volunteer appreciation lunch on May 29th, and we wanted to congratulate all the nominees and winners. It was a great event. In corporate services, administrative staff have been busy accepting payments for utilities, bills and tax bills, and following up on tickets that remain unpaid. Bylaw enforcement staff have been assisting in planning public signage, speaking with businesses who are operating without a business license, and working different hours to do watering patrols. Just a reminder to residents that after you have received a warning, if by law notices that you are still watering on days that are prohibited for you, that we will be issuing fines. The corporate officer is responding to FOI requests and conducting interviews and hiring staff, and the landfill clerk was just hired. In communications, the 2025 statutory annual report has been completed and will be presented to council at the next meeting of council on June 23rd. Facebook had over 9,300 page views since the last council meeting, and the top posts were with respect to the ALR public hearing we just had. Summer Fund Survey had 649 reviews and has had good responses, and water main flushing received 441 views. In planning and development, we have 4 new business licenses: Nisu Ramen, an Asian fusion restaurant. The Home Building Center is registration of a new owner. Shoppers Drug Mart is registration of a new owner. And the Vista La Rosa short-term rental has just been licensed. During the month of May, residential building permits in the amount of $93,500 were issued, and commercial building permits were issued in the amount of $6,500. In financial services, finance staff report that provincial and legislative annual financial reporting requirements have all been completed, and that the 2027 capital budget planning will commence in mid-June. In the fire department, Fire Smart engagement in the community is increasing. To date, a total of 22 assessments have been completed, with another 12 assessments scheduled to be done in the coming days. It's estimated that approximately 250 people have been reached at the information sessions that have been held in the community. And finally, in operational services, the utility supervisor position has been filled. The town's very pleased to welcome former employee Dave Steen back to the town of Osoyoos. One position remains vacant within the utilities crew. And staff are working with Waste Connections to renew our garbage collection contract. We're anticipating an extension to August 15th to finalize the existing contract negotiations.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Coulson. So we'll look for council reports. Councillor Poderica.
Thank you, Risha. May 27th.
I apologize. We need a motion to accept.
Thank you.
The report. Councillor Poderica, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Risha. May 27th, attended the Fortis Species Public Safety Power Shutoff presentation at Sonora Community Center. Really good opportunity for residents who were there to obviously ask questions and share their concerns. Fortis, I think, did a really good job of kind of explaining their position, and as well as identifying properties that would be affected in the event of a public safety power shutoff. May 28th, attended the community event for Tiana at Lakeview Plaza. Turned out a couple hundred people there in support of her and her parents. She is down at BC Children's Hospital receiving treatment and care. May 29th, we attended UC's volunteer luncheon with the majority council, and on June 2nd, had a board meeting with Destination Osoyoos, and that's my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Poderica. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On May 28th, attended the Accessibility and Age-Friendly Committee. On the 29th, the Volunteer Appreciation Lunch. And words can't say enough for all the volunteers we have in this town. Again, I want to thank you very much. And on the 2nd of June, attended the Community Services Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May 27th, also attend the open house for Fortis. May 29th, the Volunteer Appreciation Luncheon, and I agree with Councillor Kings and Councillor Zach about the great work the volunteers do. June 1st, the Trails of the Okanogans. And I'd just like to also congratulate Emmett Madsen for winning the National Award and representing the school district at a national level. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Chung.
Mm, feedback. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the volunteer luncheon, but I do echo the sentiments that the volunteers are the lifeblood of all the events and everything that makes the CS as a community so awesome. Yeah, pesky work got in the way, unfortunately. Aside from that, great successful first week of volleyball, 216 players. I just want to thank staff for their assistance and to making sure everything ran smoothly. Yeah, Wednesday evenings, come on down.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I've had a busy 2 weeks. I think I probably had something on just about every day, so I'll go through my list. Certainly appreciated Fortis coming and explaining what their concerns are. There were, I think, 15 Fortis members from the coast, from Penticton, from Kelowna, from Princeton, from Oliver, and they were all very available for 3 hours for anybody who came down and could ask questions. That was very well done. I was at the Highway 3 Mayors and Chairs meeting last week. And what we talked about, we talked with people from Ministry of Transportation, MOT. And so what we do, all of us, mayors and chairs, provide information on roadways, on problem areas, bridges, bypasses, and MOT listens. They really appreciate that we do this. So I specifically asked on behalf of Chief Cook about the bridge and about other bridges on Highway 3. How are they protected? What happens in case of a problem area? And I did talk to the person from Mott who works out of Penticton, and I am going next week to have a meeting, part of the RDOS, and so I will bring up all of those issues again when I'm at the Mott meeting then. Volunteer luncheon was really nice. There were lots of people there and very appreciative of everybody who was nominated and all of the people who got awards, and they were all very happy. I was at the museum AGM on May the 28th, and they have a new board there. They do this every year, and a very interesting, worthwhile group to belong to. And the following day, I had to go to the Elks AGM. They had a provincial group there, and they had elected a new provincial president, I think, and a vice president, a couple of vice presidents. It was very nice to be there. Besides the Elks, Chief Louis and I were invited, and we both spoke. And Chief Louis said, I think the mayor is older than I am. So he and I had a couple of words after that. I said, I will agree, but you have been in this game longer than me. Anyway, it was very nicely done, and we appreciated being asked. The Okanagan Lake Water Quality Association had an AGM, and James Litley, who is an expert on zebra quagga mussels and the new dreaded golden mussel that seems to be of more of a concern in a way. He spoke for about an hour. There were about 30 people there. They all enjoyed listening to him and asking a lot of questions. So thank you to that group. The Water Quality Society is one. I don't know whether they have other ones in the province, but it's definitely the one that's been involved for the longest time. So we appreciate it. And Okanagan Basin Water Board meeting on June the 2nd, and there was a hydrologist who spoke about Mission Creek and Vaso Creek and how to deal with things. And the one statement I wrote down, her name is Chani Welsh, that she said, and she mentioned this a couple of times, we need to get used to dealing with less water, period, everywhere. Partly because of the increase in population, partly because of climate change. So whatever we're doing with water issues is likely going to have to continue for a long time because we are just going to have to get used to doing it, to dealing with it, with less of it. And fires, interesting, I had just written this down. Fires affect drinking water because they can stay the remnants of the fires in the drinking water and cause pollution for many years. So you have a fire and ashes and so on go in the lake, then that affects your drinking water. Rural health. I was also at a rural health meeting with Minister Osborne, and it was with small communities. And she talked a little bit about healthcare and the problems and that type of thing. And of course, a lot of the issues were around closures of hospitals, and we're all dealing with that. And so it was just a chance for all of us small communities to be concerned. And some of the things were there's longer hours expected at a smaller hospital. Healthcare authorities are all different. There's 6 of them, I think, in the province, and they are different. They have different pay grades and different ways of doing things. And part of the problem when you vying with other communities to get doctors and nurses and so on coming to your community, it takes away from there. So it's kind of a mixed bag of all of these things. However, it was very interesting to sit and listen to that one. At the regional district meeting last week, the RCMP, all of them from the 6 communities, plus the superintendent, McCandy, they spoke for about an hour and a quarter. They talked about many different things. And our Sergeant Beta, has agreed that he will come and give his report to council very soon. The other thing that we had at that meeting at RDOS was the Okanagan Basin Water Board Executive Director, who spoke to us at our last meeting, and she did it to the entire RDOS. ETSI BC, that's Economic Trust of the Southern Interior. There was a RAC, Regional Advisory Committee meeting last week, and we have agreed to fund 33 projects totaling $1,011,100, I think, and for the next 6 months. And in the fall, there is exactly the same amount of money available again. Lots of different things, economic development strategies, and that's really important. So smaller communities all over the Thompson Okanagan and the Columbia Kootenay have applied for that. And then yesterday I was on I can't even find where it is now. It was called a Look West webinar. And it was about, I think Mrs. Coulson was also on it. Minister Callan was on looking for jobs and prosperity for a stronger BC and a 10-year plan to build economic resiliency. Strong partnerships with First Nations, strengthening the workforce, deliver major projects faster, diversify markets in growing targeted sectors like agricultural, AI, tourism, life science, marine, aerospace, and partner with the feds on defense priorities for BC. Quite an interesting meeting. And I also wanted to say that, we're very proud of Emmett Madsen, who, as Councillor Bennett said, won gold in electronics for the National Skills Canada. And 2 years ago, Tucker McCore also got the same award in electronics at Canada, and he and Boyd Turnbull, who is a teacher at the high school, worked with Emmett a little bit, and obviously very clever people, and it's great to see the school district and young people doing so well. And we had invited Emmett to come and speak to council, and his dad's going to ask and see if he'd like to do that. We're not sure. And the other thing I just read yesterday, according to World Atlas, the prettiest towns in BC, number 1, Whistler, number 2, Revelstoke, number 3, Osoyoos. And then number 4 was Fernie, and Penticton got number 9, Tofino number 7. So in the top 10, 5 of them were resort municipalities, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because that's what we do well. Anyway, that's my report for today, and I will look for a termination of the meeting. You don't get in fast enough. Councillor King, Councillor Chong, all in favor.